If we can experience limitless on the physical plane with our ability to measure, for me, a refusal to acknowledge that could occur in different ways that are not so easy to measure is the same as when people insisted that the world was flat, or that the atom was the smallest particle. It's just because you can't, I've heard scientists say if you can't measure it, then it isn't there. But what about when we couldn't measure stuff? We couldn't.
Well, I always like to say, well, if you take that logic, then really you don't exist, right? Because we can't measure. I mean, we can measure the effects of consciousness, but we can't measure consciousness itself. And there are a profound number of things which cannot be measured. And my favorite example of which is qualia itself. Qualia is a word that describes our immediate sensory experiences. So scientifically, right, we can look and we can say, okay, this bowl of blueberries here, it has a certain chemical makeup, it has a certain weight, everything else, we can measure all that. The photons bouncing off of there hit my eyes, which send an electrical signal to the back of my brain, and my brain works a way to do that. And that's all great and good, but then at what point does that information translate into my experience of seeing it? And the palpable nature of it, right? You can't measure that. It's unmeasurable because it exists in consciousness itself. And so this philosophy of saying if you can't measure it, it does not exist, excludes the entirety of your conscious experience. You don't exist, dreams don't exist, and qualia don't exist, which means nothing exists.
It's almost as if, I feel like... sometimes I feel like science still bears a grievance from the early burning of its geniuses.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It's like, clearly we need both these things. Clearly we need a relationship with what is known and what is measurable, but we need to honor the unknowable. Why do we have to become dogmatic and oppositional?